DK Metcalf from the Seattle Seahawks, and you're watching NorbCam.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is NorbCam coming at you on this Happy Blue Friday, the Friday before Super Bowl 56. Can't believe this day has finally come. But it's been, I gotta say, it's been an interesting week for me personally. Actually, we were before the show started. Was talking with Squabo, and I'm going to bring the fellows on here. So we have more of a NorbCam triangle today, a triangle-shaped table. It's just the three of us. We got SquaboSays in the house and SteezyASmith. Fellas, welcome back to the round table or the triangular table, whatever we want to call it. But glad to see you guys. I wasn't even sure if we were going to do a show today, but glad we could do this real quick. How you guys doing today? Squabo?
I'm good. It's a very busy day today. We're doing this thing now at 3:30. We're doing a show on my channel, talking about the Super Bowl, talking about the NBA All-Star Draft, and how LeBron James had to contain himself with laughter when Kevin Durant wouldn't pick James Harden, who just forced a trade away from his team. So there's a lot of drama to talk about there. And then later tonight, I'm so blessed to be able to. I'm calling the women's basketball game at Washington State University versus UCLA tonight at 7 p.m. And I'm calling it with my roommate because the person I was going to call it with dropped out last minute. So it's going to be a whole lot of fun.
Now, are you calling it on air, or is this in the building, or what?
I'm calling it for the radio, the student-run radio station, KUGR.
Oh, so you're doing play. So you're doing play-by-play. You're doing play-by-play.
I'm doing play-by-play. Yep.
Wow. Nice. Okay. That's awesome.
On their Facebook page at KUGR Radio. Thank you.
Okay. Well, there you go. So a lot to look forward to. You're going to be a busy man today. Steezy, I know you'll be on with the show with Squabo after this. But I'm glad you're able to take time to hop on my show to do this. Anything new on your end as far as your channel and stuff like that?
Nothing new. I wanted to host my first show sometime today or tomorrow. But like I said, all these internet issues just throughout the week, I haven't been able to fix it. Nothing seems to be working. So I'm kind of thinking I might have to shift away from Xfinity. So that's kind of where I'm headed. But
you gotta. It's worked well for me, but you got to do what you got to do. But yeah, I know you got a lot of the internet. It's kind of hard to run a show. So
I'm saying.
All right, well, good luck with that, man. I know it's frustrating. I had my issues with Xfinity too. I had to get a new modem and stuff because there was a time when my thing was just crashing big time. Like it would be fine, and then the next show would be like going, and then I could see my whole thing crashing down to zero. I was like, oh man, So I did have to do some troubleshooting and get a different modem from them. So anyway, there's things you could try if you haven't already tried already. But anyway, we're not here to talk about IT issues and internet. We're going to talk about, of course, the Super Bowl, which is this Sunday. And a little bit of Seahawks news today, some hirings and firings to get into. So I just want to real quick, just to add to this, I haven't done my walk talk today. First, I know some of you guys have been watching that. I've been doing my morning walks, and it's been kind of an opportunity for me just to share what's been going on, particularly with my dad. And my dad's been back since early this week, and I was just talking with Squabo about it, how it's been one of the more, I guess, interesting is not really, the more humbling types of weeks because just seeing my dad, it was great to have him back from the hospital, but I knew that the real work was going to start once he got home. And it really is that. He's technically beaten COVID because COVID didn't take him, but it definitely knocked him down a couple pegs. He lost like 30 pounds because of that. He also hasn't eaten much, and so he's lost a lot of strength, a lot of endurance, a lot of muscle. And he's really having to learn to do all these muscular things again. He has to learn how to walk again. He's got to learn how to breathe properly again and just to recover. So I'm expecting it's going to be at least a 2-month road. But I'm hoping that at the end there will be a return back to where he started from. But it's been that first week and going, wow, this is really going to be a marathon over the next couple months and maybe longer. So will we watch the Super Bowl together on Sunday? At first I thought we would, but more looking at it may be tough to have my dad sit here in the studio with me for 4 hours when going to the bathroom is in itself a huge undertaking. So it may not happen. Maybe I might be able to have them pop in virtually like we're doing right here and watch it a little bit that way together. But probably in person is not going to happen for a while. So next year is the goal, to return back to the stadium, return back to everything, and hopefully the Seahawks also return back to the promised land. So let's talk about that right now. So the big news of the day, two things, well, sort of three things, I guess, if you look at it. The Seahawks firing the offensive line coach, Mike Solari, promoting Andy Dickerson from within the Seahawks, and then also on the defensive side, we kind of knew this was coming. Sean Desai from the Bears has now been brought into the Seahawks as again, he's like a defensive guy, but he's also associate head coach. I don't even know what associate head coach is. Maybe you guys can explain that to me. And then Carl Scott from the Vikings will be the defensive passing game coordinator. So there's a lot of things in there to jump into. Let's talk more on the Mike Solari part, because to be honest with you, I was a little surprised at that, especially at this point, having that change, because I thought Mike Solari was actually one of the better line coaches out there. But then again, changes had to be made this year, and well, we'll see how that goes. But let's get, Squabo, your take about that. Let's talk about the Mike Solari and the Andy Dickerson promotion. What's your thoughts on the news?
Look, when Mike Solari came in, he was all about fundamentals, and I thought that was going to be a really good thing for our offensive line technique, making sure that our guys are, they know the proper technique and they know angles and leverage and all those things. And he did a solid job at that. I think part of the problem has been the personnel. I think part of the problem has been our development over time. We haven't had guys that have just become stalwarts on our offensive line. Damian Lewis is good, but he also has penalties, whether we agree with them or not, that have cost us games. And we haven't had guys that have just blown us away across the offensive line like, oh my gosh, he was amazing this year. No, it's been a consistent problem. And if we know we can't turn over our entire offensive line. We can't turn over some pieces, and I'm sure hoping, as well as a lot of Seahawks fans, I'm sure are hoping that we change a lot of people. I think getting rid of Solari was a good move at this point. I think our offensive line has been a liability. There have been games like the Pittsburgh game where in the second half we come out and we're just aggressive and low to the point of attack, and we're coming out and running the ball down their throats. And then what happened the rest of the season and game after game after game, it wasn't the same. So we need to find consistency. We need to find a way to develop our offensive linemen. We haven't been able to do so. Pete Carroll, this isn't the only person that he's promoted from within his staff, but also, and you talk about how we're bringing in so many other people. I think this is Pete's way of keeping his job. I think the only way that he could, tell the ownership that, hey, we're working on things, it's like, look, I'll bring in a whole bunch of people to help with our weaknesses. I'm going to promote a few guys from within because we're trying to support these people that have worked with us, but we need some help, and he's finally admitting that.
Yeah, and of course, he's not going to fire himself. So what do you do when you got to make changes? You're going to surround yourself with coaches that you hope will make your team better, make you better. So, Steezy, does this make the Seahawks better with this change of firing Mike Solari and promoting Andy Dickerson?
I think ultimately the sort of talent that we're going to be able to acquire in the offseason or not acquire, I think is going to be the biggest reason, as to why this signing or this firing is either a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, yes, like Squabo was saying, he's a very talented offensive line coach. There's a lot of hope when he came in, but ultimately we haven't done a lot on the offensive line. We haven't allocated, top tier resources. We don't draft offensive linemen in the first round. And when we do, we tend to choose the wrong offensive linemen. So ultimately you could have the best coach, coaching up a certain position group or coaching up guys, but if the talent isn't going to be there, or at least relative to the rest of the league, if it's not going to compare or match up, it doesn't matter how good the head coach is. And so if we're aggressive, on the offensive line, we do have 3 starters that are free agents. And so we have a lot to address on the offensive line. I would hope that I wouldn't hope that his addition is his subtraction is addition, if that makes sense. Just because he's such a great mind, a great guy, but like Squabo also said, he hasn't really been, the sort of developmental guy that we've wanted. I mean, Damian Lewis took a step back, and so what does that say about him? Ethan Posick hasn't really improved. Dwayne Brown had an awful start to the year last year. And I know he skipped a lot of training camp. I know he's getting older. I know he's been injured, but some of those things have to be an indictment on Mike Solari. I mean, we praise him. We talk about how good of an offensive line coach he is. Well, when the offensive line is struggling and guys are looking worse than they did the year before, he has to take some sort of blame and he has to be held accountable. But with Andy Dickerson, he was, I think, our run game coordinator. He came over from the Rams. And so I don't know, how much he could provide as far as being the offensive line guy. I mean, that is a different position. That is a different, group that he has to take care of. And so I would like to think he has some sort of potential. And just to kind of answer your question from earlier, associate head coach was actually what Clint Hurt was before he was promoted to defensive coordinator. So Sean Desai is essentially taking over for Clint Hurt at the associate head coach's spot. And he's also, I think, like some sort of special defensive assistant, but we'll touch on that shortly.
I didn't know that Clint Hurt was the associate head coach. I guess, does that mean he becomes the next head coach if something were to happen? Like if suddenly Pete Carroll got sick and couldn't come to a game, would he be the guy then? It's just
it'd be one of the coordinators, or it'd be him. So
yeah.
He's definitely he'd be in the running.
It sounds like more of a title than it is really anything else, but maybe there are some details within the organization that it gives him. But never really thought much about who the associate head coach is. Squabo, you going to add something to that?
Oh, no, I think if Pete Carroll were to be unavailable tomorrow, I think the head coach would be Clint Hurt.
Okay. All right. Well, interesting. Well, hopefully that doesn't happen, in the middle of the season. But some people might say, hey, I'd be okay with that. But
we get to see what he's made of.
We will, yeah, and you always wonder, like, how much does a head coach really influence the game? Because I think different sports head coaches have different hands-on in what happens during a game, like baseball, right? I think the head coach makes a lot of important moves, like when they're going to pull the starter, when they're going to make substitutions, put a pinch runner in this situation, and then in football, it's a lot of times it's just the coordinators can run the show, and ultimately how much does the head coach influence which big decisions happen in the game? But at this point, it's going to be Pete's show until something changes from up above. So. We'll see what happens there. So sticking on the offensive line before we switch to the defensive side, you guys brought up about the talent and issues there. Who do you think? Who are you keeping right now? Because everybody wants a whole new line, but of course you can't just replace an entire line. It would be a bad idea to do it anyway because you need some continuity. But also you can't afford to just get a whole bunch of 5 new guys in there. So which of the guys you're definitely keeping for 2022 season? Squabo, start with you.
The only locks are both guards, Damian Lewis and Gabe Jackson. Dwayne Brown, Ethan Posick, Brandon Shell, I would like to replace if possible. I understand that's unrealistic. If I had to pick, I'd keep Brandon Shell and the Jake Curhan backup option over there. And I'd focus on left tackle and center because, frankly, those are 2 more important positions than right tackle.
Steezy, how about you?
I think the only lock for me is Damian Lewis, but I need to see him revert back to right guard just because he was so much better there. He displayed so much potential there. Gabe Jackson, he was solid for us. I think he only gave up 1 sack, but when you look at his cap number, $9 million, we have so many guys we have to re-sign. We have so many guys that we want to target. If he's going to be paid $9 million, I'd like to see him in the upper echelon of guards, which he just was not last year. And so I think we could save a lot of money by having a Phil Haynes, maybe even Jake Curhan can move over to guard. I think he might be better built to play guard. When you look at, how he plays the position, when you look at some of his, physical attributes, I think the only lock is Damian Lewis, but he has to play back on the right side. I don't think anyone else is safe. Dwayne Brown, I think he might come back. He is going to be 37 once the season starts, and so I don't think, we're going to have to outbid anyone to bring him back. So if there's anyone close to being a second lock, it'd be Dwayne Brown for me.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I know a lot of people were disappointed, including myself, in his performance just because – you just watch the tape and you see so many plays where he gave up sacks and let guys come through. But at the same time, who do we have better to replace him, right? If you had the next guy or a high draft and you know you were going to get a great replacement tackle in the next draft, that'd be one thing. But we don't have the heir apparent yet. So I think we need him for at least 1 more year, and then we try to get somebody who we can, either we try to draft someone who they feel like they can develop, or they do something in a trade. But right now I feel like that'd be a gaping huge hole to just suddenly throw just a name into the left tackle spot. Dwayne Brown, as he is right now, is still better than a lot of what could be, just guys plugged into that spot. So he's not great, but there's a lot worse, so we'll see what happens there. Travis Blankenship in the Super Chat, he asks, was Tom Brady God? I don't know if he means to say God or good. Maybe he's missing an O there. I don't think he was either. Tom Brady was neither God, nor was he good because he was great. So I'm not sure what the question is meant to ask there. I think the bigger question that obviously everyone's been flirting with is Tom Brady really done? I don't want to explore any length of time on this, but maybe just a quick yes or no from you guys. Do you feel like we've seen the end of Tom Brady, or is he going to return like a bad Batman reboot? Is he going to come back in another uniform at some point sooner than later? Squabo?
Steezy and I talked about this on my show. I think it's possible he comes back. I think it's more likely that he doesn't. So I'm saying no.
Steezy?
I'm gonna say yeah, and I talked about it in that episode that I dropped even before he retired. I mean, and then on his podcast earlier this week, he's talking about never say never. Like, why would he say that a week after retiring? It's like he's toying with us. So I don't know. I mean, I've had people tell me, "Oh, watch out, you might go to San Fran next year if Trey Lance isn't ready," or there's rumors and stuff like that. So as long as those are going to continue to circulate, I think there's I'm not going to say a high probability, but I definitely would say that the likelihood of him coming back as opposed to not coming back is definitely higher.
I think if Daniel were here and stakes were at risk, I would probably I would be with Squabo. I'm leaning towards slightly below 50-50 that he does not come back, but who knows anymore, right? I mean, there's so many rumors and they'll continue to fly around. But I think the thing is nobody ever says anything for certain, right? Everything's got this tiny little glimmer of, but maybe, just like Russ. Oh yeah, I want to be a Seahawk. I want to play here for the rest of my career. But there's always that but, and then I think there'll always be a but until they actually mail in their retirement papers and it's official. But we'll see what happens. I just don't think it's gonna be any time like in the next few months that somebody's going to pop in with another team. But we shall see. It'll be interesting and never a dull moment. All right, so let's switch to the other side of the ball with the defensive changes. So there was a lot of talk about getting Donatelli. We didn't get him, but we did get the other guy who was rumored to be talked about that would come over here from the Bears. Sean Desai comes over to be what is he? Actually, he's this. Isn't he the associate head coach?
Now
he's the associate head coach, right? Now he is. And Carl Scott from the Vikings becomes the defensive passing game coordinator. So again, it still feels a little bit like that defensive coordinator by committee a little bit, because you got basically the associate head coach who was the defensive coordinator, not the defensive coordinator for the Seahawks, and you have Clint Hurt, the defensive coordinator, and then you got another guy here doing the passing game coordinator from the Vikings. So I want to get your kind of take on this, just kind of how this whole thing fits together. What's your take on? Is this a good thing? Does this make sense? Is it the right move? Squabo, you start.
I think one thing we're realizing, and if it was one of the things that led me to thinking Pete needs to go, is that he's spread a little bit too thin. He is all over everything. His fingerprints are on the offense, defense, special teams. Everything is all about Pete Carroll. He's more than the head coach. He's the head coach and VP of football operations. Like, he is everything Seattle football ever since the late Paul Allen left us. And so now what we're seeing is he's promoting from within, and he's bringing in outside faces, right? It's been dramatic this offseason, more than it's been in the past. And yes, we had a down year, but a lot of people point the finger to Russell Wilson's injury, which statistically does make some sense. What I think is happening here is Pete is finally acknowledging, like, hey, I cannot do everything. You promote from within when it's somebody that, okay, I know what I get from them. They know what I expect. I know I can trust them to do what we've already talked about, and I don't have to worry about it. Then he's also bringing in the Carl Scotts of the world, the Sean Desais of the world. It would have been Ed Donatell if he didn't get a defensive coordinator job with the Vikings. But to bring in those two individuals, both of which are secondary focused and are going to help in the passing game. Pete Carroll, he can focus on the pass rush and trying to get that right and bringing in and putting guys in a position to be successful, working on personnel decisions, which he was probably more able to do when he first got into the league. And we had those home runs in the draft. So if Pete Carroll can focus on personnel and not so much about the scheme, we've seen the Pete show before. And when he's spread too thin, it's not pretty. So I'm glad that we're trusting other people to have some of the powers and to take them away from Pete. I feel like this is Pete saying, hey, I'm not going to do everything this year.
That's a good take. So, Steezy, how about you?
Yeah, I'm 100% with Squabo. I mean, look, Pete just has had too much on his plate, and that's led to subpar results, and in all areas, whether that's the defense's performance, whether that's, who we're bringing in via personnel, guys in the draft, free agency. He is at least able to focus on, just one or two things at a time, as opposed to, 5, 6, 7 different things. Sean Desai, associate head coach. I mean, this guy's one of the brightest defensive minds in football. The Chicago Bears had a plethora of injuries last year. Khalil Mack didn't play half the year, and yet they were 6th on defense in terms of total yards allowed, just barely over 300. And so he didn't have too much to work with, and yet he was able to put in a remarkable, respectable performance. And the Bears have always had a reputation for fielding, if not a great defense, then a competent defense, a solid defense. And so with the pieces that he was working with, I thought he did a tremendous job. He's been with the Bears for a while. He's worked under Ed Donatel. And then you have a Carl Scott, another young defensive mind coming over from Minnesota. You have all these young voices, all these young minds. They get to focus on the secondary. You have what's his name? Clint Hurt. He gets to focus on the defensive line. And so Pete Carroll, aside from personnel, he could work with the linebackers. He could work with the pass rush. He doesn't have to, focus his attention on the secondary and the linebackers and the pass rush and the defensive line. He has different guys to handle different duties, different roles. And I hope that definitely helps him. I mean, anytime you have too much on your plate and you get some of that lifted, I like to think that you tend to do a better job. So we'll see what happens. And he is getting older. And so having so much on your plate, that's definitely not a plus, especially at this stage in his career.
So it sounds like for you guys, because I know that you've both been sort of, when we were talking about it over the course of the season, you were kind of ready to see Pete Carroll go. Short of him being fired by Jody Allen, this is probably the next best thing, right? The fact that this move is essentially just, while not being stripped technically of his duties, he's essentially looking to be delegating to younger coaches on top of that, because Mike Solari was also, he's in his 60s as well. So the whole coaching staff is getting younger, which I think a lot of us have been saying, yeah, Pete's system is too old. So the fact that they're bringing in these younger guys, different systems, feel like this is him acknowledging some of the stuff that we've been talking about. And short of being fired, feels like the next best thing. Agreed?
And one more thing, Norb, you know how they always say you can't teach an old dog new tricks, and when you look at some of the rise of all these head coaches around the league, these are all young, bright offensive minds, especially in our own division. And so what better than to counteract and, battle back with some of our own younger, bright-minded defensive guys. And if anyone's going to teach an old dog new tricks, it will be the new guys. It will be the young guys that we brought in. And I feel like, we're finally starting to play some chess and not checkers. So we'll see what happens.
Chess, not checkers. I like that.
And I think it's only appropriate to give Steezy some credit here, because while this isn't exactly what you were talking about, I feel like this is a more manageable way of doing your theory. Because Steezy, one of your theories was, and correct me if I'm wrong about any of this, but you were talking about how if we're not going to get rid of Pete Carroll, what if we just put him as defensive coordinator and brought in a new head coach, or we put him in a limited role? Well, I didn't think that was realistic, because you can't just take a guy that was your entire franchise and tell him like, hey, we still love you, but we want you to not do anything, right? And just back up and do just defensive coordinating. And so I thought that was unrealistic. But just like what you were suggesting, they're obviously taking responsibilities away. And you look at where we're getting these guys from. We're getting guys from, or we almost got Ed Donatel from Denver. And if nothing else, think about the personnel that they've had in the secondary. How long did we want a Chris Harris Jr. or Patrick Surtain? And now we get a guy from Chicago in Sean Desai, who helped discover Kyle Fuller. And he was a part of that process. So if nothing else, we're at least bringing in guys to help with personnel, and it's taking some pressure off of Pete Carroll in similar ways that Steezy predicted.
And make sure you guys like and follow and subscribe to SquaboSays and Steezy. Their links are in the channel in the description, so please make sure you follow them. Squabo is inching his way. He's only 159 away from 1K, so come on, guys. Let's get with it here. So, and then watch his show in exactly 1 hour from now, right? 3:30 is your show, Pacific time? So just under an hour from now, so they're going to go into much more detail on this and some other things as well. So make sure you guys do that. I did a poll on my YouTube channel. I just want to say, I don't know if you guys saw it, but if not, it's even better. But the question was, if you could have only one, which free agent are you keeping? And I listed 5 names. Did you guys see this? Squabo, did you actually see any of this?
I voted Diggs.
You did? Okay.
I'm sorry, Nor, but I didn't.
No, I'm glad you didn't. It's better that you didn't, because I want to see what you have to say, Squabo, Steezy, see if you align with what everybody else says. Because the 5 names I put up there: Quandre Diggs, Rashad Penny, DJ Reed, Gerald Everett, and Dwayne Brown. And I knew where most of the people were going to go, but I wanted to see where the others fell, because it kind of tells you what they think of the other players who weren't put on the must-have list. The clear winner was Quandre Diggs. 74% people wanted him. So I'm just curious what you think. Where did the other 4 fall? Rashad Penny, DJ Reed, Gerald Everett, and Dwayne Brown. Who do you think was second and third on that list? I'll ask Steezy, since he hasn't even seen this. So again, Quandre Diggs was number 1 by a landslide. Then the other 4 were Rashad Penny, DJ Reed, Gerald Everett, Dwayne Brown. What do you think was the order of the next 2 in terms of popularity?
I think Penny was 2. And then I think DJ Reed was 3. Dwayne Brown 4. Gerald Everett 5.
Wow, you got that right. And is that,
no way.
You nailed it.
Oh, wow. Oh,
you nailed it.
I promise I didn't see it. I just
hey, I'm like, damn, is he like looking at it right now? Because you just nailed it. Literally, it was 74% Quandre Diggs. Then it dropped to 13% Rashad Penny, 7% DJ Reed, 3% Dwayne Brown, and 2% Gerald Everett. I mean, it was close, man, but you nailed that order. Is that how you would have put your order as well?
No, mine would be a little different.
How would it have been different?
So number 1, it had to be DJ Reed. Look, I'm not saying he's the best.
Wow, DJ Reed number 1.
Yes, but I know Quandre Diggs is the leader. I know he led our team in picks. I know he is, the guy that kind of sets the tone. He's physical. He plays bigger than his size. I mean, he's my height, for crying out loud. But I think DJ Reed, when you look at the fact that he's 25 years old, when you look at the fact that he plays a premium position, when you look at the fact that he's not coming off of a broken fibula and a fractured ankle, when you look at the fact that he's only going to get better, when you look at the fact that he's such a well-rounded, versatile cornerback in the National Football League, I think the sky is the limit. And so a lot of people are sleeping right now. Plays in the Pacific Northwest. We won 7 games. He was a relative nobody when he was with the Niners. I think he'd be my guy. I think number 2 would be Quandre. Number 3, Rashad. Number 4, Dwayne. And then number 5, Gerald Everett.
Are you? Did you lower Quandre Diggs' stock because of the injury, or is that not
slightly?
Anything
But
to do with it?
Slightly, but only because, look, safety isn't a premium position. He's getting older, and when you're a guy that's my height at 5'9" and you're getting older, I just don't think your best years, or you have as many best years as a guy like DJ Reed. So, but I don't think the injury really lessens his value all that much, but I also think that he could be a candidate to potentially be franchise tagged. We never really use that, but I think he could be a guy just given the injuries.
So, Squabo, how about you? You'd seen this and you'd voted too. Were you in line with the same order as what everybody else was? I was personally pretty surprised, especially when it came to the latter half of that list.
I probably would have flipped DJ Reed and Rashad Penny. And the reason is because it's actually similar but different to the reason I put Quandre Diggs number 1. I think Quandre Diggs is number 1, and I think it's not even that close. Here's why I say Quandre Diggs is number 1. First of all, he's the only person on that list that made the Pro Bowl without other people not showing up. Okay, so and that is with an injury. Okay, number 2. Quandre Diggs in our defense that for years now has struggled to force turnovers is our leading turnover getter, and he has been for years. DJ Reed at corner only has 2, and he got targeted plenty this year. So the fact that Quandre Diggs was able to get his hands on the ball. Third of all, we overpaid for Jamal Adams. If we are going to overpay for Jamal Adams, in order to compensate, we have to have another safety to go with Jamal Adams that can cover really, really well and make up for the fact that Jamal Adams should not be the single high safety at almost any point throughout the game or the season. And because of that, Quandre Diggs is even more valuable. So he's better at his position than DJ Reed is at his position. And I think that that's very important because I think that we could bring in, it's easier for us to bring in a guy to replace DJ Reed than a guy to replace Quandre Diggs.
Well, and I know that Steezy, or actually both of you guys, have stakes on DJ Reed's market value with Daniel, because Daniel is much on that side saying that he's going to get less than $10 million a year, thinking that he's going to be undervalued, underappreciated by the rest of the league. But you guys, well, Steezy obviously puts him on top, so we're going to find out in the next few weeks what that number is going to come to. But, oh, guys, the Jamal Adams, the quandary with the quandary is not about quandary. The quandary is, doggone it, the whole money we got tied in with Jamal Adams. I hope they figure out a way to utilize him. It's a weird puzzle piece, right? Because he's a good player with certain strengths, but he's just got a lot of big liabilities also. And how do you make him work in that system? I don't know. I mean, do you guys feel like there is a winning combination of how you utilize Jamal Adams? Did we just not use him right last year?
Yeah. Are you kidding? How many sacks did he have last year? One? Like zero. Excuse me. I was imagining one from the year before, apparently. Like, when you go from breaking the safety record for the most sacks by a safety in a single year in NFL history to zero, he's being misused. There's no question about that in my mind.
And it's so strange that it came from, again, and even with these, like the firings we just had, the team finished strong, right? Suddenly we got the pass rushes going, we run games going. You wouldn't think there's a problem with the offensive line if you were to judge by the last 4 games of the year, right? But they had such a great finish to 2020, and yet knowing that and having him set the record, he comes out the following year and gets 0. I mean, it just who thought that? And you also have Puna Ford covering Odell Beckham Jr. at one point. So I don't know what happened, but somebody schemed up something crazy coming into this year. And whatever it is, they got to fix that, and particularly the Jamal Adams thing. So I think we all know we have to make it work with him because we're stuck with him. But I hope they do figure out a way. But these new coordinators, that's going to be task number one, is to obviously get guys in that we're lacking in position of, get the pass rush going. But, man, you got to get Jamal Adams working, don't you, Steve?
No, I think, honestly, I don't know if we ended the year, playing 3-4. I think we did, but that was kind of a new scheme in and of itself. I mean, we went from playing 4-3 to more of a 3-4. Sometimes, it was a 4-6, a bare front. A lot of the guys that we had on the team, they're just not suited. I mean, we talked about this before. Carlos Dunlap, one of the reasons why he wanted out of Cincy was because they reverted to a 3-4. And in a 3-4, your defensive ends are more responsible dropping back, or they have responsibilities dropping back and playing in coverage. That's why we saw Puna Ford dropping back from time to time. We saw Carlos Dunlap dropping back from time to time. And maybe that affected Jamal Adams, And I also think that when you set the record for most sacks in the season, defenses or opposing offenses are going to play you differently. And so I think a combination of us not utilizing them correctly on top of the fact that defenses just knew what was coming. The year before, we blitzed them at an all-time rate. You don't see defensive backs usually blitzing that often. And so I think a lot of factors definitely played into it, but it wasn't just the simple fact that, we didn't use him correctly. There were definitely other factors, I think, that went into him having no sacks. Yeah.
Well, we will definitely be watching to see how the new coordinators handle him and this new front that we'll be seeing, and who do we keep, who do we get new, but we definitely got to get pass rush one way or the other. All right, we got about 15 minutes left, or maybe 20 minutes left of the show, and we got to talk a little bit about Super Bowl 56. So we'll save our score predictions for the end, but I want to just kind of get a sense of what kind of game are you expecting to see tomorrow? I know that the Rams, I think they start out as like 3.5, 4 point favorites. I think they're now 4.5 point favorites, if I'm not mistaken. So really, as the home, I mean, they're not the home team, but they are the home team. They get their home locker room, but technically, I think they're actually technically the visiting team, which is so funny. But they're not using the home. They should have forced them to use the visitors' locker room. I think that should have been appropriate, right? You're the visiting team. You should not use your own home field's locker room. That's too much advantage. But as it is, 4.5 favorites to the Rams. Let's start with you, Squabo. What kind of game are you expecting to see come Sunday? Is it going to be close? Is it going to be a blowout? Is it going to be like what we've been watching the last 2 weeks of football, last 3 weeks, if you don't include last week? What kind of game? It's going to be good. I just want to get a feel. What do you think?
Okay, real quick, just in case we have one of those flashback moments to like another one of those crazy, insane, how did they predict that? I just wanted to say, real quick, Jamal Adams at linebacker, bring in another safety, run too high, keep Jamal at linebacker. Just putting that out there. Okay, now for the Super Bowl. I think this is going to be, and this is a dangerous phrase, a dangerous term to use. I think this is a predictable matchup, at least early on. I think the Rams are going to have the lead. I think they're going to be up at halftime. I think the Bengals are going to be down 10 to 18 points. I think the Bengals are going to bring it back. I think it's going to be very close down the stretch. But for the majority of the game, I think the Rams are going to jump out into the lead. And that's why when, on my show in a little bit at 3:30, I'm going to talk about what some of the keys of the game are, as is Steezy, and why a lot of it has to do with the first quarter of action in a 4-quarter Super Bowl, right? So I just think how this game starts matters. And I think the Rams are going to control it early.
Okay. I like how you're saving the suspense of how it finishes. Let's go to you, Steezy. How does this game start? Yeah, again, we'll do our score prediction at the end. But what kind of game are you expecting to see?
I expect somewhat of a back and forth affair. I know this might sound like the easy way out or the cop out answer, but I expect a shootout. There's a lot of weapons on both sides of the ball, especially offensively. But I kind of expect whoever has the ball last is probably going to win this football game, especially because, I do see it as a shootout. I want to see Jalen Ramsey on Jamar Chase. I know that even if Aaron Donald in that pass rush gets after Joe Burrow, he's still going to be doing his thing. He's still going to be doing his Dougie. He won't be phased. But that's not to say they'll win the game. Obviously, we'll touch on our score predictions in a little bit. But I expect a back and forth affair. And I think ultimately whoever has the ball at the end is going to win the game.
All right. Who's the most important key player on both sides? Who's the most important player for the Rams, and who's the most important player for the Bengals?
Oh, you're going to get a cop-out out of me. Stafford and Burrow. Like, are you kidding me? Like, it is 100% down to them. Stafford threw 4 pick sixes this year. Throw one in this game, you could cost your team the Super Bowl. Joe Burrow is the sole reason they came back from down 18 versus Kansas City, and he is a major reason why they were able to survive past Tennessee when he got sacked 9 times. So if he stays cool, calm, and collected, if he doesn't let things get over his head, he's the leader of that team, and they all believe in him. So as long as he's cool, they're going to be cool. With Matt Stafford, he starts throwing pick sixes. He starts giving the ball away. That's when the Rams are going to get in trouble. So it really in this matchup comes down to the quarterbacks.
Steezy?
I think for me, for the Bengals, it's going to have to be Joe Mixon. And I don't want to just see him utilized in the running game, but I also want to see him utilized in the quick passing game. You want to be able to try to neutralize that pass rush in any way that you can. And you don't just do that by running the football, but, throw some screens, throw some wheels to Joe Mixon. He's definitely a reliable pass catcher, and I definitely think that he could provide much needed balance, just because if Jalen Ramsey is going to be matched up on Jamar Chase, I don't expect Tyler Boyd or T. Higgins to win the football game for Joe Burrow and the Bengals offense. They're great, but they're not superstars like Jamar Chase. And so if I'm expecting Jamar Chase to be somewhat phased out of the offense due to the presence of a Jalen Ramsey, well, who's their next best player after Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase? Joe Mixon, arguably a top 5 running back in football. So he's definitely going to have to add balance to that football team if they're going to have any shot at winning. I think for the Rams, I agree with Squabo, but I'm going to go a different direction. I think Cam Akers, he struggled all playoffs. His yards per carry, he's been fumbling the football. He's been careless. I think they could get away with the Matthew Stafford pick or 2 if they're able to run the football effectively. Look, that Bengals defense, it's good, but it's not great and it's not terrible. They're just middle of the pack. They've been very opportunistic. They've, been capitalizing on poor and sloppy play from opposing teams. I mean, Ryan Tannehill had 3 picks. I know that defensive line harassed Joe Burrow, but if Ryan Tannehill has 1 or 2 less picks, the Titans would have won that football game. And so I know Matthew Stafford is turnover prone, but he's not as turnover prone as a Ryan Tannehill. And so I feel like if the Rams are able to run the football, they could get away with a turnover or two for Matthew Stafford as long as they're able to run the football well and effectively. I think against the Bengals, it's a lot easier said than done because if there's a strength on that defense, it is the run defense. But if they utilize Cam Akers and he's able to be efficient, man, good luck stopping the Rams.
Wait, Steezy, I'm sorry, real quick. Stafford led the NFL in interceptions this year, so you can't say Ryan Tannehill is more turnover prone.
Well, yeah, but I mean, yeah, that's valid. But Ryan Tannehill, he's not accustomed to throwing picks, but in the playoffs, he turns into a different guy. And so
Stafford was 0-3 before this year in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people will point to the to the futility of the Detroit Lions.
Different team, yeah.
So,
hey, Stafford did his best to try to up, what Tannehill did against the Buccaneers. They just had one extra little bit of buffer to not give that game back when they were up by such a huge margin. So for me, I'm going to go a little bit different route. I think for the Rams, it's easy to say the quarterback, so I'm not going to go there. I'm going to say that for the Rams, it's the next easiest one, and it's not Aaron Donald either. It's Cooper Kupp, who some may argue was the true MVP of the league, not a quarterback. Cooper Kupp, he is like, we know him too well. Cooper Kupp is our thorn in our side. He's the thorn in everybody's side. But if Cooper Kupp just does okay, the Rams are usually winning the game. But he's never just okay. He's great, and he's so clutch, and he makes plays when nobody else is doing it. And so I feel like he's going to bail out whatever situation there is. If there's going to be someone to bail out a bad game by Stafford or a lack of a running game, Cooper Kupp to the rescue. He's going to be the one thing that is going to save that team if any struggles are happening. You can count on him to be there. So I think he's going to be important no matter what. On the Bengals side, you kind of stole my thunder. I was going with Mixon as well because I feel like against that pass rush, we see the struggles. We've seen how many times that Burrow's been sacked this year, and it's been luck, a lot of luck. And I've argued this on previous shows that luck plays a big time role in a lot of these games, especially in the playoffs and in Super Bowls. And you make your own luck, but also there's a point where it's like sometimes the other team is just more talented. And the only way you can beat that other more talented team is you have to have luck. You might need your defensive lineman to get an interception, which will never happen once in every 50 games. You're going to have to get a lucky break here. You're going to have to, get a turnover where you may not expect it. And that might be the one thing that can help the Bengals get past this team that I think on paper, it's hard not to see the Rams being the predictable winner here because they're so strong in every category. But like you said, Squabo, Stafford has a habit of making bad plays and bad interceptions at bad times. And so if they can catch lightning in a bottle and get a big play when they need it, and if Burrow can just escape enough from the pressure that's going to be coming, maybe Jamar Chase goes and breaks one free when he escapes the pocket, or they get that one lucky play. It's gonna take some luck. But I think on the I'm gonna go for as far as the play. I'm gonna say Higgins, man, because watching that KC game when the ball wasn't going to Jamar Chase and when it wasn't the quarterback Burrow running for his life, Higgins was making plays. He was getting first downs, keeping drives alive. And I think sometimes when you're so focused on the stars, that the other guys get that opportunity to step up and be a hero. And so he may have to do the same thing because they're going to be covering, Chase is going to be covered. Like you said, Steezy, we know that he's going to want to do the best. He's going to want to cover Chase, but that might leave Higgins with some open opportunities. So, we'll see. The odds are definitely stacked against him. So as we get close to the end of the show, the broadcast here, let's go see our score predictions. Tell us how this game finishes and what you got as your final score. We'll go Squabo, Steezy, and then I'll share mine. Go ahead, Squabo.
Like I said, I think the Rams are going to be out early. In 4 of the 5 games that the Rams have lost this season, they've trailed at half, right? So there's only been 1 game where they had the lead at half and lost. I think it's going to be a priority for them, as it's always been, to jump out early, to be front runners. They feel like this is their game. They feel like, it's in their home stadium. Like, it's made for them to win. They made the big trade. They have the young head coach. Everyone in this organization believes, which is why if the Rams lose this year, oh my goodness,
Yes.
are they in trouble in terms of salary cap, in terms of personnel, in terms of losing faith in your head coach. This is a must-win game for the Rams. If the Rams lose this, they're in so much trouble. They know that heading into it, they're going to be on fire early. They're going to get the lead. At halftime, they're going to be up. Towards the end of the first half and into the second half, Joe Burrow is going to keep their locker room cool, calm, and collected. Jamar Chase is going to get going. You mentioned it. T. Higgins is going to get going. Tyler Boyd. Is Uzama going to play? If he's available, if he will hopefully get going for Cincinnati. It's going to be down to the wire. I have the Rams 34-31.
Damn. Steezy.
Man, that kind of just killed the suspense. I actually have the same exact score, so there's no point in me trying to build anything up. So yeah, 34-31. But Squab, you have the Rams winning?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Again, no suspense whatsoever. I also have the Rams coming out on top 34-31.
I'm sorry, bro. I'm sorry.
No, don't apologize at all. Look, it's my fault for not coming up with a better score, right? But I just feel like, look, this is where the Cinderella run ends. I want to go back to that Titans game. Look, to kind of counter your point from earlier, Squab, yes, you could talk about whether or not the discrepancy between, Matthew Stafford's willingness to turn it over, it might not be much, with him and Tannehill. But what I do know is that he's a far superior quarterback to Ryan Tannehill. I mean, in college, Ryan Tannehill was playing wide receiver, while Matthew Stafford was the number one, quarterback in the nation playing for Georgia. And so I just think that while they could be on the same level as far as turnovers go, Matthew Stafford is far, far superior as a quarterback. This is where the Cinderella run ends for the Bengals. Like I said, the defense is more opportunistic than actually elite. Norb, you mentioned it. You talked about, having an unlucky turnover or having a turnover fall your way. Well, that's what the Bengals had against Patrick Mahomes. And I don't even know who that defensive lineman was when he tipped that pass in the third quarter. That's kind of what shifted the tide, shifted momentum. And then following that, they scored a touchdown, and the rest is history. And so they're definitely going to need a whole lot of luck on their side if they're going to win this football game. I just think the Rams are so supremely talented. And even if Joe Burrow takes 10 sacks, I don't think Matthew Stafford's going to throw 3 picks. He's not going to throw the game away like a Ryan Tannehill. And so I think ultimately the Rams are going to have the ball last, and they'll ice it with the Matt Gay field goal like they did against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I can kind of see a scenario in which Cincinnati is maybe down by like 10 or 14, and they kind of storm their way back. But then ultimately, like what happened against Tampa Bay, Matthew Stafford and company, they're going to get the ball back with less than a minute and drive the ball down the field. Your usual suspects, Cooper Kupp and OBJ, they're going to ice the game, and ultimately they win 34-31.
That sounds like a lot closer of a game than it should, based on the talent level and everything you just described. It's amazing that the score still comes down to that close when you just said how much the luck is the Cinderella run's going to run out. To me, that sounds like if that's going to happen that way, that Cinderella magic's like hanging in there. But for me, as much as I want the Rams to lose with all my heart, like you said, Squavo, nothing would be more satisfying to watch this home team lose in this game. They're technically not the home team, but the hosting team to lose. And with everything, you could not, the pressure is all on the Rams because, like you said, you could not ask for anything more, right? What more could you ask for to have as the advantage to make this a perfect win scenario, right? You've got your own field. You've got all the stars in the world on both sides of the line of scrimmage. You've got one of the best receivers the game's ever seen at this point, the way he's playing. You've got some of the best pass rushers that have ever played the game on one team, and you've got all these other weapons to boot. It's like you can't. It's like an all-star team. It's like a dream team.
Literally
here,
yeah. And
because of that, they should win. They must win. And for them, like you said, the anything less than that is a disaster. Now, do I go with what I want or do I go with what I think is going to happen? Well, just so I can make the show a little more interesting, I'm going to go with what I want because I don't want the Rams to win this game big time. Now, I said earlier, Cincinnati's going to need a lot of help. They're going to need a lot of breaks. They're going to need some luck. They're going to have to play out of their minds. Burrow's going to have to escape all those rushers. Chase and Higgins, those guys are going to have to be making catches and finding one-handers on the sideline. I mean, all kinds of... It's going to have to be like the greatest game the Bengals have ever played in the history of the franchise to win this game. But I agree with you, Squabo. I think it's going to start off Rams' obvious advantage. They're leading at halftime. But then something's going to happen in the third quarter. And suddenly we're going to have a ball game. The beginning of the fourth quarter, it's going to be anybody's game. And all of a sudden, everybody who's got an LA Rams jersey on is going to be nervous. Like, what the hell are we doing here? Why is it this close? We should be winning by 3 touchdowns. And it's like 1-score game. And if we can get to a 1-score game at the beginning of the fourth quarter, then I think anything happens. Then it's just one play, one tip, one fumble, one sack that should have happened, one big touchdown, one big catch, and one big run, and all of a sudden the tide turns. So I think, in perfect fashion, the way the Bengals have finished so many games, that's going to come down to a final field goal with this game on the line for the win. I don't even know his name, but he's just as cocky as hell whenever he goes out there to kick. Who's the kicker? What's his name?
Evan
McPherson. He's going to come up there, and when he's called on, he's going to be said, all right, guys, it looks like we're going to be Super Bowl champions. And he's going to go out there. He's going to kick a 42-yard field goal with down 2 to win the game 30-29 in one of the greatest games ever played and one of the greatest upsets of all time.
Wow.
Now, if Daniel were here and he was going to say, you want to put a stake on this? I'd say, hell no.
Hell no.
This is what I want so badly to happen. I want it to be the most heartbreaking, almost as bad as an interception on the 1-yard line type of pain. That is what I'm really hoping for. But the practical conscious side of me thinks ain't going to happen. But I want that badly. I want it so badly.
No. Okay, so all these years that we've been doing this show together, yeah. and I come out and tell you, like, one of the biggest things that I want is to see utter pain for the franchises of our rivals. So you've come along to that. Have you always been like this, or is this a new revelation? Okay.
Well, of course, man. Of course. Now,
okay.
Though I say that in the same breath, saying that I actually enjoyed watching the 49ers beat the Packers, even though every part of my practical side said I should be rooting with everything against the 49ers being in a division. But there's something about the Packers, too, that watching them go down at home and Aaron Rodgers going down with it was very satisfying as well. So for the most part, anytime it's a rival game, anytime it's a rival team, of course, going all in against that team. And I'm so much this time because I feel like it's just too much. They've got too much. And to be rewarded, it just wouldn't be right.
Well,
no.
Fair enough. And gentlemen, this could be our last opportunity, potentially ever, hopefully not ever. But this could be the last show ever that we 3 host together, with the Seahawks being the last team from the NFC West to have won a Super Bowl. We have never done a round table without us being the last team to have won a Super Bowl within our division.
That is true. That has been that way for, 7 years? No.
Groundbreaking.
Yes.
7, 8.
9. Was it 8?
9.
8. No, 2. We played Super Bowl 48.
2014.
In 2014, technically.
56.
8 years.
Okay.
8 years ago. A little over 8 years ago.
Wow.
If it comes to Monday, we can at least say we are still the last team in the NFC West to have won the Super Bowl. There it is.
Right.
Okay. We had to say that.
So just to add, with that point, all the more reason we got to have the Rams lose this game, because it would be the beginning of the end of the Rams in so many ways if they lose this game. Mm-hmm. Like you said, the doubt that would be in their minds forever. I mean, it would be like the Falcons blowing that lead to the Patriots, and just every time you're up 28 points to 3, you'll always think, I don't know, we can still lose this thing.
Not good enough.
It's not good enough. And if you can't win this Super Bowl with all that in your hand and all that in your pocket, what are you going to win?
Or they could be just as fired up. It could just be like, you know what? We have all this talent. We have all these superstars. Let's get one more and we'll run it back. So I can see it either way.
If they lose, they're going to come back with that feeling. Oh man,
I think so. I mean, these guys are all superstars. These guys are all cut from different cloths. And so I know the Falcons team, they had some stars of their own, but their star power doesn't come anywhere near close to what the Rams are featuring right now.
But
well, okay,
you can't bring the entire band back now, can you? For another run back to back.
If the Rams lose, they are done. They ain't going back to a Super Bowl with Jalen Ramsey, Aaron Donald, and Matthew Stafford on the same team. One of those three will be gone by the next time they make a Super Bowl, at least, if they lose this game. This whole thing is working because Jalen Ramsey from the Jaguars, Aaron Donald from Jeff Fisher, Matt Stafford from Detroit. 3 guys coming from places where, wow, this is a unique opportunity. McVay is the GOAT. McVay is great. Let's all McVay. McYay. If that doesn't work, if somehow McVay finds a way to screw this up, McVay has his fingertips all over the Matthew Stafford deal as well. So if Matthew Stafford chokes this game, it all falls back on McVay. The faith is lost in this organization. If you lose this game, what Super Bowl are you going to win?
Well, think about it. They've already lost a Super Bowl, right? Was it 4 years ago? They lost to Brady. And if they lose another one with this, and that, you're going to say, well, we had Jared Goff and we played Tom Brady. You could excuse that loss and go, they had the better quarterback. We had a sucky one. But now, what is your excuse? You really cannot excuse it. We're already saying it now that if they anything but winning, there's no excuse for it. That's a lot of pressure. For a team when you have everything to lose, and you're just so hand over fist the odds-on favorite to win. But we'll see. It is only 4.5 points, so it's not like they're predicting a 2-score blowout. Team. It's a screwy thing, right? They're not the home team, but they are the home team. Technically, the home team gets 3.5. I don't know if they are factoring that in because they're technically the visiting team. But either way, they're the home team for crying out loud. Only 4.5 points. Let's find out which one of us is right. Well, 2 of us are going to be right. Or I should say 2 of us will be right or 2 of us will be wrong. Because I'm on an island here, and I'm not sure what Daniel stands. Daniel might be. I'll have to find out what his actual take is. I think he also doesn't think the Bengals are going to. Isn't that what he said? I don't think he believes even as much as he championed and got stakes for the Bengals. I don't think he even believes the Bengals are going to win this game. I could be wrong. But I don't even think Daniel Stake is going to go all in on that one. So 2 days we'll find out.
No, if Daniel believed in the Bengals, he would be here right now predicting it. Like,
yeah, I know.
There's no way if
That's
he
true. That's true.
Hashtag
well, Daniel,
Jinx the Rams has already begun.
Yeah. All right, fellas. I know you guys got a show to do in 20 minutes, so thank you guys for being on here. Again, please subscribe to Squabo Says. Get him to 1K. And Steezy, he's already passed 3. Next road is up to 4K, so let's get him there. For those of you who hadn't already subbed him up. And in 20 minutes, go check out Squabo Says. These guys are going to continue talking about this game and more on Squabo Says channel. So until next time, I will be streaming in some form, whether my dad's with me or not. I'm not sure yet, but I will be streaming the Super Bowl on Sunday. So it'll be fun to watch it with you guys. It's going to be a fun game and even better halftime show. Can't wait to see that. All right, you guys. Thanks for joining. We'll talk to you guys later. Have a great weekend. See you on Sunday. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.